All right, so welcome to this episode of Ground Up Real Stories from Defence Infrastructure Leaders. I'm Sean Whitfield, co-founder of Elevate Consulting Engineers, and we've got a real treat today. You're about to dive deep into the story of who we are, what we do, and of course, how we're making waves in defence infrastructure. Jason, why don't you start us off?
Thanks, Sean. And hey to all our listeners out there. My name's Jason Marshall, also a co-founder of Elevate and a guy who's spent over 30 years solving civil engineering puzzles. I've worked across everything from consultancy gigs to government projects. And well, here we are building Elevate for the past half decade.
Well, 5 years, man. It's wild to think about, isn't it? For those who aren't familiar, Elevate Consulting Engineers is this Indigenous-owned civil engineering consultancy. What really sets us apart isn't just the technical stuff, though. Yeah, we nail that. But it's the way we weave in community outcomes into everything we do. That's what makes us different.
Right, exactly. Elevate's core focus has always been civil infrastructure, roads, drainage systems, foundations, all the way to the nitty-gritty earthworks, whatever keeps defence estates running and resilient, we're there. But I think the thing we should really talk about today is how we got here, how two engineers built this from the ground up, right?
Absolutely, and we're doing it right as we hit our 5th anniversary. 5 years of tackling challenges, working on defence bases across Queensland and New South Wales, and let's not forget paving the way for Indigenous participation in the infrastructure game. And it's something special we've built.
Couldn't agree more. So that's what we're going to unpack today. Not just the big milestones, but the vision behind the company and all those moments that shaped us as a team. Let's jump in.
All right. So as we were saying, 5 years in and with so much behind us, let's take a step back, Jason. What made you say, hey, let's start this firm? And more importantly, what drove the decision to make it Indigenous owned?
Yeah, good question. I think the short answer is there was a gap. I'd been in the industry for decades, and while there were plenty of civil engineering firms, how many were genuinely making space for Indigenous voices? Almost none. And you, well, coming from a hands-on construction background and working closely with communities, you were always crystal clear on why we needed to change that.
Exactly. It's personal for me. Growing up the eldest in a big family, you kind of learn to look out for others. That mindset stuck with me my entire career, especially when I was working on remote projects. I saw firsthand how Indigenous people and communities often got left out, not just of the workforce, but like the whole process, ownership, input, representation. None of it was there.
Right, and that's exactly the problem we wanted to address with Elevate. The industry has traditionally been about just boxing compliance without genuinely involving communities or respecting cultural ties to the land. The usual approach doesn't create actual value for those it's supposed to benefit.
Yeah, and that's where we decided to do things a little differently. We wanted Elevate to represent something bigger than just another business. Indigenous ownership isn't just a badge for us; it's a responsibility. Building trust within communities, employing Indigenous engineers, incorporating cultural insight that's foundational for us.
That's true. And to your credit, the way you pushed for that early on, I mean, it was inspiring. It wasn't enough to just say it. We had to weave it into every project, like embedding it from the design stages all the way through delivery. That's why clients like Defence really see us as, well, not just engineers, but partners with purpose.
And let me tell you, it wasn't easy starting out. It never is, right? I mean, remember when we landed one of our first jobs up in Townsville? Small contract, sure, but the stakes were sky high for us. It was a chance to prove that this vision, Indigenous ownership, real community impact, wasn't just a feel-good idea. It worked.
Oh, absolutely. I remember that. We put everything into that project, time, energy, long hours, making sure those designs weren't just technically sound, but also, aligned with those local community needs and Defence's tough standards. that project was our proving ground.
And now, 5 years later, here we are watching the ripple effects of that vision, seeing other firms take Indigenous involvement seriously. That's what it's all about. It's not just getting a seat at the table, it's about leading the change from within.
Exactly. And honestly, this journey isn't just about projects, it's about creating legacy, something that outlives us, grows communities, and tackles issues of inclusion in a meaningful way.
Yeah, man, legacy. That's a powerful word, and I think it's a good way to wrap up what drives us, what's at the core of Elevate. It's about laying down the road, not just figuratively for those who come after us. So building on that legacy we're creating, let's dive into what really sets Elevate apart today, the things that keep clients coming back for more. Jason, care to start us off?
Sure. At the core, Elevate is all about delivering, civil engineering solutions that, well, aren't just functional, but are built to last. We handle just about everything: road systems, drainage networks, airfields, and even earthworks, where the groundwork really sets the tone for everything else. It's all connected.
Oh yeah, and it's no small feat when you're designing for some of the toughest environments, defence estates, for example. I mean, when we worked on that RAF Amberley project, it wasn't just about slapping down some concrete and calling it a day. Yeah, there were real challenges there, right?
Exactly. That project had us tackling heavy duty pavements for secure communications facilities while integrating with the base's existing infrastructure. And then there were issues like reactive soils and even PFAS contamination. So we had to develop specific geotechnical management strategies and water handling systems to not only meet regulations, but ensure longevity too.
And let's not forget some of those practical wins, like the way the stormwater systems had to align with Defence's standards. What sticks out to me is how we modelled all the existing services in 3D for that seamless integration. That kind of attention to detail, that's why clients trust us.
Absolutely. And that level of trust, it comes from delivering, results time and again. Take Laverack Barracks, for instance, and we revamped their entire road infrastructure, pavements, drainage, line marking, the works. But what made that project stand out wasn't just the technical achievement; it was, the sustainability aspect.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yeah, recycling 12,000 tons of road material on site. That was a game changer. It hit those ambitious waste reduction targets Defence had set, and it didn't hurt the budget either. But let's be real, it also showed that sustainability doesn't have to be just a buzzword in these big projects. And
Exactly. It's proof that innovation and practicality can coexist. And speaking of innovation, remember the salt ash air weapons range? That was a whole new level of challenge, working on fire trails in a live weapons range with Indigenous heritage sites and unexploded ordnance risk.
oh man, that project had everything. But what really stood out was the use of LiDAR tech to map the terrain. Instead of boots on the ground for weeks, potentially unsafe ones at that, we collected precise data in record time. Plus, working closely with heritage monitors ensured we protected those culturally sensitive sites. That's what I mean when I say Elevate goes beyond the technical.
Right. And it's that ability to align technical precision with broader priorities, whether that's environmental standards, safety considerations, or community input, that defines our approach. It's not just about building infrastructure, it's about constructing something meaningful, something that aligns with Defence's mission and values.
Couldn't have said it better. And really, I think the synergy between our core capabilities and our mission is what makes Elevate stand out. It's that combination of expert engineering backed by a deeper purpose. It's this ethos that we carry into every single project. Speaking of aligning technical precision with broader priorities, one area where Elevate truly stands out is our Indigenous engagement model. This isn't just a box ticking exercise or something we do on the side. It's central to how we approach every defence project we take on.
Exactly. When we talk about Indigenous engagement, it's about embedding it into the foundation of our project planning and delivery. From early stages, we're looking at things like Indigenous land use agreements, cultural heritage obligations, and even identifying opportunities for Indigenous businesses to become actively involved in the project.
And that's what makes it real. You're not just consulting, you're collaborating. A good example of this is when we work with traditional owners during the planning phase. On one project, we actually held on-country meetings with elders to make sure the land's cultural values were respected. And it wasn't just about avoiding heritage-sensitive areas. It was about understanding the land in a way that helped shape better designs. And
Right. And it's not just about preventing issues later on. It's about proactively planning to ensure those cultural considerations are fully respected from the start. For example, incorporating heritage protected zones into our environmental and design management plans ensures compliance with legislation while building trust with the community.
It's simple. When you take the time to involve the community, you get better outcomes, for everyone, and that includes bringing local Indigenous businesses into the fold, mapping what's available in the local enterprise landscape. We've worked with businesses for everything from material supply to earth moving, and beyond just meeting procurement policies. It's had a real economic impact.
Absolutely. And the benefits don't stop at economic participation. It also helps streamline projects by tapping into local expertise. Indigenous subcontractors often have deeper insights into the terrain or environmental conditions, which can save time and reduce costs for things like material transport or site prep.
And let's not forget the workforce side of things. One of my favourite projects was up in a remote weapons range where we brought on Indigenous trainees. Not only were these young people building skills, but they were helping lead cultural heritage monitoring for the project. Talk about impact. It's these moments that stick with you.
Exactly. And initiatives like that align with bigger government and defence goals like closing the gap and meeting Indigenous procurement policy targets. By putting these elements at the core of our delivery model, not as an add-on. We reduce project risks while creating lasting positive outcomes for communities.
And the trust that comes out of that's huge. For defence projects, it's not just about meeting specs. It's about building relationships that ensure projects run smoothly and leave a legacy beyond the infrastructure.
It's also why partners like SEG and prime contractors value what your Elevate brings. Our model aligns Defence's priorities with meaningful, tangible results, from safeguarding cultural heritage to enabling real Indigenous engagement. It's about delivering more than just a project.
Amen to that. And honestly, seeing other firms take note and step up their own engagement efforts, that's the ripple effect we were hoping for. It's proof that this approach works, not just for us, but for the industry as a whole. Jason, reflecting on how we've tackled defence projects over the years, I can't help but think about Kowanyama. That time we faced a supply issue because the access road was flooded beyond use. Remember how we had to adapt quickly?
Completely washed out. It was practically a riverbed after the rains, but...
Right, exactly. And here we were trying to deliver on a tight schedule in the middle of nowhere. Those logistical nightmares taught us so much about preparation and resilience. So you've got to plan for the unplannable and roll with the punches when they come, because they will come.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about getting the supplies through. It was about, keeping the team motivated and aligned under tough conditions. And those challenges shaped a lot of how we approach leadership now, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. I mean, dealing with stuff like that, you really figure out who you are as a leader. I remember saying to myself, all right, Sean, focus on what you can control, keep things moving. And it worked. We got it done, but not without some creative problem solving. Let's just say that.
Creative is a generous word for it, but I agree. Those projects forced us to refine our processes, like figuring out exactly how to balance the technical needs of defence with the practical realities of remote work. all while respecting cultural sensitivities and heritage issues. It's a juggling act.
Oh, 100%. And speaking of heritage, remember that site where we had to stop everything because of the cultural artifact discovery? It wasn't just a delay, it was a chance to engage with the traditional owners, involve them directly in the solution, and then actually make the project better because of it.
I do. I remember thinking at the time, this isn't a setback, it's an opportunity to do things right. And that's something we've carried with us, right? Building those relationships and showing respect. It's not just the right move ethically, it creates smoother projects in the end.
Exactly, and it shapes how we make decisions. When you've been tested like that, whether it's logistical headaches, cultural obligations, or unexpected roadblocks, it gives you a kind of clarity. You know what matters, what doesn't, and where to focus your energy to keep things moving.
Right. No, and those lessons extend to our team too. When you've been in those trenches, so to speak, it changes how you guide others. It's about leading with empathy and ensuring everyone feels empowered to tackle challenges head on. It's leadership forged under fire.
And speaking of the team, those younger engineers we've mentored and brought along, seeing them grow because of the lessons we've learned, that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Couldn't agree more. It's about passing on the knowledge and building something that lasts longer than just one project. These experiences, they're the building blocks of something much bigger.
Thinking back to everything we've just talked about, Jason, those lessons and challenges, what's the one piece of practical advice you'd give to someone stepping into a defence infrastructure project tomorrow?
Well, if I had to, narrow it down, I'd say understand the environment you're working in. And I don't just mean the physical space, though. That's a big part of it. It's also the operational, cultural, and sometimes even political landscape. Every defense base or site is its own ecosystem. It has its own rules, stakeholders, and challenges. Walking in blind will get you nowhere.
That's a big one. And you know what? I'd add to that, don't underestimate the power of relationships, whether it's with, defence personnel, traditional owners, or even local contractors. Building trust early can save you a world of headaches later on.
Absolutely. And, it's not just about building trust, it's about maintaining it. That means being transparent, delivering on what you promise, and showing a real commitment to the project's broader goals, whether it's sustainability, inclusion, or readiness. So,
yeah, and that ties into one of my go-to bits of advice. Be adaptable. The unexpected will happen. Supplies don't arrive, permits hit a snag, or oh man, the access road suddenly becomes a creek. Well, you've got to be ready to pivot, and that takes a team that can think on its feet.
Right. And part of that adaptability is preparing as much as you can beforehand. Like, look at the risks, map out contingencies, and don't cut corners in the planning stages. I mean, proper planning isn't glamorous, but it's what keeps the wheels turning when things get messy.
Totally. And from my side, I'd say don't ignore the human element. For us, that means embedding community connections into the project. For example, involve traditional owners early. Don't wait for an issue to crop up. Upfront collaboration makes all the difference.
Couldn't agree more. And speaking of planning ahead, engaging local Indigenous businesses isn't just a tick box exercise. It's about creating real impact that strengthens the community while also benefiting the project. Their local knowledge and skill sets can make things run smoother in ways you don't always expect.
And it's not just about using their services either. It's about training, mentoring, and setting people up for long-term success. We've seen how incorporating trainees into projects not only gets the job done, but also creates a ripple effect in those communities' legacy, right?
Exactly. You've got to think beyond the immediate project. If you've done your job well, you'll leave behind more than just infrastructure. And that's the mindset that makes a project like Laverack Barracks not just a technical success, but a meaningful one.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So, yeah, to wrap this part of it up, prep like crazy, stay flexible, and never forget that relationships and impact matter just as much as the technical specs. It's not just a job, it's a responsibility, and that's how you deliver something truly great. Jason, after everything we've unpacked about challenges, adaptability, and planning ahead, it's clear how far Elevate has come. Reflecting on 5 years of incredible impact, it really puts those lessons into perspective, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Seeing where we started, just an idea about doing things differently, and now reflecting on the legacy we're building, it's humbling. And I think what's been key is the alignment between, technical excellence and that deeper purpose of community connection.
Couldn't agree more. And what's exciting is thinking about where this is all heading. The defence sector itself is evolving, right? More focus on sustainability, innovation, inclusion. Those aren't trends; they're like essential to how we move forward. Elevates right in the mix.
Exactly. And being able to drive that kind of change, not just react to it, but lead it. That's where we see ourselves helping defence tackle new challenges with resilient, connected infrastructure, and doing it in a way that respects and empowers everyone involved, from the base commanders to the local communities.
Yeah, that's the future. And honestly, for those listening, if any of this resonates, whether you're in defence or thinking about working on these kinds of projects, reach out. We're always up for a chat, sharing insights or exploring ways to work together.
Definitely. You can find us at elevateengineers.com.au. We're happy to connect, whether you've got questions about projects, Indigenous engagement, or just want to hear more about how we're shaping resilient infrastructure for the future.
On that note, thanks for tuning in, everyone. It's been a blast sharing this story, and we hope you got a sense of what makes Elevate tick. Until next time, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep building something great.
Take care, everyone. Talk soon.